those unaware, we take these tours to Israel. We have 3 planned next year, 2 to Israel, 1 for people who've never been before, to get the full experience of Israel. But you can get a fuller experience if you want to stay for our second timers tour. This is all brand new stuff people haven't seen, so you could actually stay for 21 days and see everything there is to see. By then, as you know, war should be cranking down. We don't, no one knows.
Hopefully.
No one knows. But I had a tour this last April, but it was canceled because no planes were flying. It's hard to get somewhere if you can't, fly. So.
Can't take a bite.
Anyway, we also have another tour to Greece and Turkey, and so hopefully hi Jim, you did make it all the way from Florida.
Wow.
We were praying for you.
Hey, Jim. Glad to see you.
Now, if you want to take over, you're welcome to.
Oh, no, you're,
All right.
you're the invited guest.
All right. I'm here.
Yes, for those who didn't go to lunch, this is Christy.
Hi, Christy.
I'm talking, several weeks ago. Christy came to lunch and met Randy and Beverly.
Good to see you.
Where is Beverly?
That was back in April, not several weeks. Well, it's several weeks ago, close to it. But this is the last time, Jim. I was just telling them everything. So house closes the end of this month, and we have to. Anyway, I do teach in a seminary next week, end of next week, in Shepherd Seminary in Cary, North Carolina. So pray for my students. Anyway, all right. So we talked about 3 tours coming up. This is the book that'll be coming out this fall. I think it's now been pushed to January. I turned it in way back when, but there's been issues, so it is about 704 pages. It's got 450 something color photographs and charts and everything, but it also takes you through biblical archaeology from beginning to end with all the latest discoveries. And I couldn't say that about my older book, but now I can say that. I've got everything. So they named it the Comprehensive Illustrated Survey for that reason, biblical archaeology. You can go to Amazon.com and pre-order it for a 37% discount if you so choose.
And you said somehow that helps you out?
It helps, it just improves your ranking in Amazon.
Okay.
And it also, people look at that and say, oh, there's that many books being ordered, that's good. And so it helps marketing, it's that kind of thing. So
Who's Titus Kennedy?
Titus Kennedy also teaches at the seminary that I'm going to be teaching at. He's put out 4 or 5 books, good books. He's an archaeologist, a field archaeologist as well as teaching this subject. Younger guy. He's done the foreword because, as he says in the foreword, he started archaeology because of me.
Okay.
His dad gave him my book, The Stones Cry Out, back when he was a little kid, and dates me a lot. We were just at a conference in Colorado, that's last week, and people go, oh, I read your book when I was a high school student. Gray hair and everything going on. Anyway, but he said, then he came, his father took him to Israel, and he came to the dig I was doing. And I don't remember him at all, but anyway. Then he came to my other dig when we were doing a cave in Qumran, and I sort of remember him, but now he's come to his own. He's kind of one of the up-and-coming evangelical archaeologists. So I said, yeah, would you do a forward for me? So that's what's happening. Well, this morning we want to talk about the Magog War and the rebuilding of the temple. If you don't understand any of that, I'll explain it to you. Because as of a couple of days ago, we have a new U.S.-Iran nuclear agreement. And I said before some of you came in, we don't often talk about politics in church. People still want to separate the two. We want to give you the ethical, moral values behind some of the political decisions, but oftentimes we kind of stay away from that. But I said when politics cross into the realm of prophecy, and the Bible has clear things to say, we want to look and see how our events that are happening today possibly setting the stage for what God has said will happen tomorrow. And tomorrow may be closer than we think. So this agreement, if you have been following the news, the White House has announced a final deal with Iran. They went and bombed a bunch of stuff, and then Iran apparently has capitulated. And it states that Iran has committed to destroy or remove enriched uranium from the country and will no longer finance terrorism. And it also said they'll no longer seek to produce nuclear weapons, okay? Now that should be good news to the U.S. and to Israel. It's certainly good news during midterms. I mean,
Yeah.
the very fact that got a peace deal, the stock market's responding, you know, the oil prices are going down, he's a peace president, you know, whatever.
That started going down yet, right?
Well, because we brought all these millions of gallons of oil, you know, from Venezuela and every place else all over.
I bought gas for $3.17 yesterday, which is $1
Yeah.
cheaper than just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
it's going down.
Yeah, gas is down.
There are places where, you know, you wouldn't think it was down because we never paid those kind of prices in Colorado where we were and other places, but, yeah, supposedly. It is all measured to help him, but, okay, so having said that, let me show me the caveats. Israel was excluded from negotiations, and Israeli interests were not considered. Okay? Israel's main concern is ballistic missiles, which can reach them and reach Europe and everything else, and they got plenty of them. That was not addressed. So that leaves production intact and a further threat to Israel. That's why when you look at the news, people in Israel are quite concerned about this, all right? This leaves Iran standing strategically stronger. From their perspective, if they survive, they won,
Yeah.
okay? Because the last day is theirs. They're not worried about midterms or, you know, they're not going anywhere, you know? So from their theocratic position, which I'll explain shortly, they've got the end, so they can wait. And so this just gives them more time. Now, this is even a little more concerning because our Vice President, J.D. Vance, in responding to the Israelis, said, what harms the U.S. is America's business, and what threatens Israel is Israel's business. So what that tells you is, you know, don't try to get us to help you. All right, that's the idea. So it's basically Israel alone. And President Donald Trump put it this way. Netanyahu says, well, we'll finish the job. We'll go with him. He says, pull back. He stopped Israel from furthering attacks on Iran. He said, if Israel attacks, we, the U.S., will withdraw all support from Israel. Not just some support, all support. This is a very different position than what we've heard before.
Do you know how new that statement is? That's
Yeah, 2 days ago.
2 days ago.
Okay. So, but let me remind you, nothing has really changed. Here's our Ambassador Huckabee saying in Iran's ultimate goal is to destroy the United States. Nothing's really changed. You look at these quotes, you know, here, basically, this was from back in 2019, we'll turn the White House into an Islamic center, death to America, none of that has changed. And then remember, Trump was not saying that long ago, that there are big threats on my life by Iran. I mean, that chair is empty because of the Israelis supported by Israel, and America's involved. The Khomeini is gone. I mean, they're getting ready to celebrate, have his funeral. Haven't even had it yet. We're getting ready to have his funeral. It's next week. And Iranian crowdfunding claims to raise $40 million as reward for assassinating Trump. So, I mean, and by the way, people in the Middle East don't let bygones be bygones. You know, it's vengeance. It's if you strike me, I got to strike you back twice as hard, or I lose face. This is the kind of thing that needs to be understood. That and what runs the whole mentality in Iran. It has since 1979, 1980, when the Ayatollahs overthrew the Persian sort of democratic regime that was there. So Iran's political ideology is heavily influenced by Twelver Shia beliefs. The Twelvers are a group of Shiite Muslims who have a distinct apocalyptic thinking. It includes a messianic vision that sees chaos and conflict as necessary for the return of the Mahdi or the 12 Imam. This apocalyptic perspective drives Iran's hostility toward Israel's destruction as a sacred duty. Now, who is the 12th Imam of all things? Well, he rides a white horse, I'll tell you that, according to the thing. The Holy War, as it is known in Islamic jurisprudence, is basically an offensive war. This is the duty of Muslims in every age when the needed military power becomes available to them. This is the phrase, or the phase in which the meaning of holy war has taken its final form. Thus the apostle Allah, Muhammad, said, I was commanded to fight the people until they believe in Allah and his message. So what you're seeing is there are times when they're not strong enough, so it seems peaceful. But the ultimate goal is to be strong enough to basically destroy everyone and have them submit to Allah. And that's what's happening through immigration here and other countries in Europe, basically, because they don't assimilate. They immigrated in order to basically establish themselves, bring whatever area they're in under Sharia law, which is opposite from the law of the country, and then ultimately have an outreach to establish Islam. Not necessarily by converting people, but by dominating the culture of society. This is from the Iranian government's media publication called The World Toward Illumination. Here's what they say about the Mahdi or the 12th Imam. He will arise from Mecca, all Arabia will submit to him, then other parts of the world as he marches toward Iraq and establishes his seat of global government in Kufa. He will send nearly 10,000 of his forces to east and west to uproot the enemies of Islam, and one land after another will come under his control. The last of his apocalyptic battles will be the overthrow by his troops of his arch-villain in Jerusalem, the Islamic holy city in Palestine, currently under occupation of the Zionists. That's a mouthful. Okay, mouthful of misinformation, but anyway. And it's interesting, since the Mahdi rides a white horse, there have been Muslim authorities that have looked at Revelation 6, seen the rider on the white horse, and said, that's the Mahdi. It's in the Christian Bible. You know who the rider on the white horse is? You can tell us. Antichrist. Antichrist. Okay.
Which is them.
Well, anyway. Just some key aspects of Iran's apocalyptic beliefs. The Mahdi will return to establish justice after a period of great turmoil. So all this stuff that's happening is what they want to happen. This is perfect for them, because you don't have someone come deliver you and step in to finish it if you don't have something going. If it's peaceful, peace is not a good thing. The role of chaos. The belief system posits that catastrophic events and the defeat of enemies, particularly Israel, are essential for the Mahdi's reappearance. Hostility toward Israel. It's a sacred duty. Iran views the destruction of Israel not merely as a political goal, but as a religious obligation. This perspective is rooted in the belief that Israel stands as an obstacle to the Mahdi's return. And they do, of course. But think about that. I mean, I took this from a government website, but think about, you know, what's being said here, and how that colors the whole picture of any type of diplomatic agreement or a memorandum of understanding, which is what we have signed with Iran. We don't know who in Iran, IRGC, we don't know who's really signing this stuff. But the divine mission, Iranian leaders frame their actions against Iran as fulfilling a divine mandate, believing their efforts are part of a larger cosmic struggle. What's the implications for foreign policy? Iran's theocratic ideology leads to foreign policy that prioritizes ideological aims over pragmatic considerations. In other words, we don't care how many people die. We can kill 40,000 of our own people, which is protesting. Nobody will say a word. And really they haven't. You see a whole lot of media pushback on that. It's amazing. But the intertwining of religion and politics means that diplomatic solutions are often overshadowed by perceived necessity of fulfilling religious prophecies. We don't have that here. We think in terms of what? Separation of church and state. You know, there's secular government, there's religious this, we don't put them together. Theirs are intertwined, there's no separation. They can agree to something politically, but only so it will further the apocalyptic view. So for almost half a century, Iran has been ruled by a theocratic government that unless radically replaced will continue its goal of global domination, despite being destroyed from a Western perspective. If it survives, it's been victorious. This is, and you've got to understand, kids are born into this. From the time they're born, they're indoctrinated in this. They go to schools and push this. Every job, I mean, there is no freedom of thought outside of what the government wants. Now we know there's probably a million Christians in Iran. There are people who want to change. They have no ability to change. They don't have any, they're not armed. They can't do anything. And no one's going to help them, it looks like. So this is where we are. You know, this is what you're dealing with. You know, kids and adults and stuff. So you'll see when they have the funeral, they televise it of Khomeini, the Ayatollah, how many people, you know, 2 million people fill in, you know, Tehran Square or something like that. That's what will happen. There's also another thing, and I wish our government, somebody in the government understands this, but apparently our president doesn't. Taqiyya. Taqiyya is a religious concept that allows Muslims to lie, to deceive or hide their beliefs if it helps spread Islam or protect its agenda. All right? Taqiyya is a deliberate deception practiced with non-Muslims in order to protect the Islamic community. That's exactly what they do. They have no obligation to tell the enemy the truth. And you're the enemy, okay, if you're non-Muslim.
Hey, Randall, how you doing?
Whitney, what's up?
So speaking of that, what's going to prevent Iran from either buying a nuclear weapon or having somebody, like North Korea, or somebody giving them one?
The agreement, well, I'll show you this as we move on, because last week, Russia signed an agreement with Iran, $25 billion agreement to provide the nuclear.
What did you just say there?
I'll show you the thing shortly.
Okay.
Okay. I'm coming to it.
All right.
Good. Yeah, that happened last week. It wasn't on the news. It happened.
Obviously not.
Okay. So first off, what I'm saying is Iran isn't changing. They are duty bound to move toward their apocalyptic goal. They do not have to tell the truth to anybody. And obviously, the higher up you are, the more you are dedicated to this. So here, I won't talk about the general here and stuff, but it says, one person said, the Iranians win as the clock goes tick-tock because victory lies in their survival. Their lies, obfuscations, and propaganda are all weaponized towards this end. And as Trump prefers to deal with the Iranians as if they were honestly negotiating with him, he only allows them the greatest avenue towards achieving the victory of their survival, and that is time. Okay, so all I'm saying is something has happened, and if you say, oh, well, it fits in with prophecy quite clearly, that these things are moving in this direction. So the Magog War deals about a prophetic invasion of Israel, Ezekiel chapter 38, 39. I'm going to quickly go through that, and then we'll bring in something that you may not be aware of that was happening in Israel just in the last months, I mean, since May, which was when they had their Jerusalem Day, things going on. All right, Ezekiel 38 says that after many days you'll be summoned, and the latter you will come into the land restored from the sword. The inhabitants have been gathered from many nations to the mountains of Israel that have been in continual waste. This is one of the statements made in Ezekiel. I already said this is in the future. This is in the last days, okay? But it says God is going to summon a group of individuals from nations to come against Israel, an invasion. All right, so look at this. How have we seen this being fulfilled? Well, Israel will be gathered from the diaspora after the war. Diaspora is being outside the land, and settled in Judea and Samaria, which they are now. So just look here, people were gathered, brought out from many nations, not just from one nation. This wasn't a return like from Babylon or Egypt. It's from many nations. That's what happened in, let's say, the end of the 20th century, and then in the 21st century, no, we're in the 21st.
Yeah, we're.
So the end of the 19th century, moving into the 20th century, we had these people being brought out, and then we come to the point in 1947, 1948, when Israel becomes a nation again. And so when Ezekiel says, brought out from many nations and settled in a land restored from the sword, what could it be talking about? Well, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about all of Israel, at least the last 400 years, was under the Ottoman Turkish rule. And before that, it was under the Roman rule. Before that, it was under the Greek rule. Before that, it was under the Persian rule. Before that, it was under the Babylonian rule. So in 586 BC, they basically lost independence, and they never had independence since that time. Okay, so there's the sword, the domination has been there. The mountains of Israel that it talks about being a wasteland, okay, this is Judea and Samaria right here. Okay? So that is what we call the West Bank today, but that is the area that was inhabited according to them. And Israelis came there and they drained the swamps. It was malaria-infested swamps, denuded land, poor conservation. They reclaimed all of that, and that happened in our lifetime, most of our lifetime. Okay, so that part of what the prophecy has been prepared for, let's say. Then it tells us when Israel is militarily secure with a strong economy and enviable resources. Ezekiel 38, 8, 11. So here is the end of chapter 38, 8. It says, and they are living securely, all of them. That's one statement. Then we come to verse 11, it says, I will go against those who are at rest, that live securely, all of them living without walls and having no bars or gates. Well, there are no walled cities in Israel today. The only one is the old city, which is simply maybe 1,000 people at best in there. And most of Jerusalem, man, people live outside those walls in Jerusalem. And then every other city has no walls. You've got this fence struck between them, some of the cities, but it's not around the cities. It's between them. There's a barrier between them and the Palestinians. Okay, the term in Hebrew that's used here for security is the word betak. That's the exact word used for these guys who are security guards. They're called bitachon. And it looks at military protection, if you look at the background of it. So Israel, in terms of being at rest and secure, they have wonderful, beautiful cities. They have, if you look at the happiness index, have you ever seen that thing, the happiest countries in the world? You know, Israel's like 4 or 5 in there. You got the Scandinavian countries up there because, you know, they give all their money to each other and they don't do anything. But Israel is like right up there, and the United States is down like 13, 14, 15. It's way down there. They're happier than we are. We have, you know, does happiness depend on me feeling secure?
And they're having more children too.
They have more children, yeah. They're having them because
Those are
they feel confident and secure where they are. And of course, they have a military second to none. Israel says, we'll take Iran on by ourselves if we have to. Okay, that to me indicates a country that's secure. There was a time when they weren't. They didn't have, you know, Kalashnikov rifles or stuff like this. They couldn't even do nothing. And now they are a nuclear power, and they have the M.O.U plant full of that. They're secure in my mind from Ezekiel's perspective. All right. What about the resources? Well, that too. I'll show that in a minute. God seeks Israel's resources and plans a ground invasion. And I'm putting these passages together. You can see them all here. Israel says they're going to capture spoil, seize plunder, turn hand against waste places now inhabited, against the people who are gathered from the nations who required cattle and goods. Well, of course, phenomenological language. Ezekiel, doesn't understand about oil and natural gas, all that is, he's just talking about natural resources. And Russia needs those, by the way, really badly right now. They got one of their things intercepted, trying to sneak, the UK intercepted this big oil thing, trying to go through to get oil to help them with the war against Ukraine. But Israel has these production facilities. Tamar and Leviathan have been producing already. Others have been discovered. There's enough for Israel to be completely energy independent and export it to others, and to create a pipeline to Europe. What would that mean? Well, it would mean it cuts off Russia.
Wouldn't have a market.
Wouldn't have a market. And so they have a real incentive for moving against Israel in the future.
Okay, and Randy, another little tidbit for you is that the Mediterranean Sea is a lot more, for want of a better term, placid than the North Atlantic.
Okay.
So I suspect that it would be a lot less expensive to build a pipeline from that section of the world over to Southern Europe than it is the ones that they've got right now in the North Atlantic and the Bering Strait, like Britain and Russia, and getting to Europe that way, and more secure.
So there you go. All right, and then an alliance of nations will join God with invasions centered on Jerusalem. It tells us that right here, verses 3 through 6 and 12. I'm against you, O Gog. Gog is a term that means something like czar or leader, okay? Of Prince of Rosh, Meshach, and Tubal. This is the area where they are. Those used to be part of ancient Scythica. The geography remains the same, even if the people occupying the geography change. And I'll show you who these are shortly. I will turn you about, put hooks into your jaws. That is, there's an incentive to draw you, bring you out, and all your army, horses and horsemen, all of them splendidly attired, a great company with buckler and shield, all of them wielding swords, or that is, equipped for battle. Persia, Ethiopia, put with them, all of them with shield and helmet, Gomer with its troops, Bet-Togarmah, Modus parts of the north with all its troops, many peoples with you, and you're coming against those who live at the center of the world, which is a term used for Jerusalem, actually. But here, we're looking at who we're talking about. Magog up here involves basically Russia and its satellites. When you talk about Put, that would be Libya. Cush would be the Sudan, maybe draw a little bit of Ethiopia in there. Obviously, Persia is Iran, we know that much. And then we talk about these others. I'll show you those in a second. All of those are Turkey. So the three main players here are, according to this, Russia, they're both parts of the north of Israel, Turkey, Iran, and then some of these, all these, by the way, have military arrangements with Russia today to do like war games or activities or get supplies or whatever. So they're already aligned in that way. So here's basically the ancient name, here are the modern names, and these are all people, right, actively involved in this. As I say,
Randy, could you go back to that slide real quick?
yeah, I'll give you this PowerPoint.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. In the last 2,500 years, there's never been a military alliance made up of Russia, Turkey, and Iran. But now they're making plans. Now, we've taken Iran's leader out, but not Iran.
Right.
So you still have Turkey over here, and Erdogan, the alliance continues, maybe just with some different faces. All right, I'm going fast through this because I got so much coming up. Invasion is supernaturally thwarted. Scripture tells us that God steps in, brings about an earthquake. There's no question that the timing and the results. Israel doesn't have to fight. God destroys these people. So there's a notable miracle that's taken place, and that can't be ignored. So it's going to focus in on perhaps an agreement with Israel's other enemies or other particular leaders who want to promise Israel something else. And that's what I put here, a political covenant for military protection from future invasion. Boy, you've been spared something great here, but you know, there's a lot going on out here. We will help you. And that is a covenant mentioned also in the Bible, Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. The beginning of the covenant says, he will make a firm covenant with the many for 1 week. The many in the context refers to the leaders of Israel. And the he refers to the prince that shall come, the Antichrist. So a figure may not be revealed yet as the Antichrist, but he will be this political leader who will step in and make a covenant. Okay, now the end of the covenant says that in the middle of the week, this is going to be Daniel's 70th week out of the 490 years that was prophesied by Daniel. This is the last. We've had 483, got one last week of years, which is the 7-year tribulation. It's been promised. Read about that in the Old and New Testament. In the middle of that week, he will put a stop to sacrifice and grain offering. So obviously, if you have sacrifice and grain offering, you have a temple. So a temple will have to stand. How will a temple come about? Probably through this covenant. If the end of the covenant is the end of the temple sacrifices, then the beginning of the covenant must have been the beginning of the temple sacrifices. So Israel's been waiting for some kind of, remove the obstacle of the Islamic powers here that are keeping us from rebuilding our temple, and we'll rebuild it. So that shows us where we're headed quite closely. And then we have the temple rebuilt during the first half of the tribulation as a result of a political covenant. And we have a number of passages that refer to something like that. This is the Israelis' vision, a future temple. There's nothing like that now. There's the Dome of the Rock there. That would be replaced. You're looking from the Mount of Olives at that kind of view. Looking at a prophecy chart real quick, what we're saying is the next event, which has no prior events and has no prophesied events, is the rapture of the church. And that's what's going to take place right here. We live in this period from the time in which Christ went to heaven, established the church, until the church is taken from there. Now, Jim can straighten you out on the rapture if you're not clear on that, but I put it right here. And then what we have is the Magog War, in my opinion, would take place if you have this vacuum of power created by the rapture of the church. The West, and it may not be this, if we continue on this path, and Trump's kind of put Israel on the sidelines, he wants to continue this, whoever takes over from Trump will continue that policy, Israel is alone, then they have no Western support. So that could work too. But if the rapture takes out, most of the people in the administration, they claim to be born again believers. They'd be gone. So who's going to be affected? That's a perfect time for Russia to say, now let's move in, there's no problem. So I put the Magog War right here and the rebuilding of the temple right at the first part of the 3.5 years, because the last 3.5 years, we know it's in the midpoint that the sacrifice and offering stop. And then here we have Christ's return at the end, the 7 years. Just kind of putting it together for you. Now, possible current scenarios that could lead to the Magog War and rebuilding the temple. Even if the U.S. cripples the Iranian economy, seizes uranium stockpiles, has a pledge it will no longer produce nuclear weapons or support its terrorist proxies, which is what they're currently saying as of 2 days ago. It remains an Islamic theocracy, which I've shown you, belief that it must destroy Israel and take Jerusalem to fulfill prophecy. So nothing changes there.
To fulfill their own prophecy.
Their own prophecy, yeah. Now, there's the news headline, Graham. Iran and Russia sign a $25 billion nuclear cooperation deal as Tehran presses ahead amidst U.S. talks.
Okay.
All right?
All right, now.
So this is to expand Tehran's atomic infrastructure, strengthening strategic relations between the two countries. This was just before the previous attack where we had this lapse and a deal was trying to be struck that didn't happen. Okay.
All right, now let me throw out an alternate interpretation, okay? All right, we know that there's going to be some formal treaty between Iran and Russia before it's all over. I firmly believe that although he has his faults, Donald Trump is doing what's best for this country, and that we today are in the, essentially, we're in the days of Josiah. Okay? All right, he was the last righteous king of Israel, and did a lot of good things for Israel. Okay? All right? Okay. It is my firmly held belief that somehow or another, one way or by hook or crook, Iran will not get nuclear weapons. So what will happen is that just as soon as another type of president is elected to this country and our southern border is reopened, that Iran is going to go to Russia and say words to the effect of, dude, you've got the backpack nukes. We have the jihadists. They've got an open border. Let's get them across the border and head down America.
And that president probably sent a, plane load of cash over to help Iran.
Well,
Done it before.
yeah.
I agree with you with Trump.
I mean, that's,
I-
that in my
I-
mind is the most likely possibility.
I think that Israel kind of feels abandoned at this point because there are two major concerns. See, Lebanon is not Hezbollah. Lebanon is a country. Hezbollah is a terrorist organization that's completely funded by Iran. And they're the ones still bombing. They sent 2,000 missiles this last week into northern Israel. They're still doing that. And as of yesterday, and so nothing's being changed there. How is Iran going to stop that? I don't know. I mean, it's
Just cut
just
off
words
the
on a
cash.
page. Huh?
Just cut off the cash. If they
I
can't,
mean-
if they can't buy missiles, then.
Okay, so what happens if Iran complies with this initially? They want some things. They want reparations. They want.
Randy,
They
why
want.
are you even asking us? They're lying.
They want the
We
Gulf.
know they're lying.
They want Hormuz Strait opened up. And they want.
It is open to our ships.
Yes, but they want it open. I mean, I'm just saying, it'll just push. I don't know. But let's move on here. Iran's supreme leader one time said he wanted to invade Jerusalem. He produced a film showing soldiers attacking Jerusalem. And then, this is part of that siege. And then Erdogan says if the war drags on, U.S.-Iran talks in Pakistan fail to achieve peace, then Turkey may enter the war against Israel. I'm just simply saying, like I did with the thing that he was saying probably won't happen, the nuclear thing. I don't know. But I'm just saying Iran is tied in with Russia. And here, Erdogan says, we will go attack Israel. Everything is in the mind to do. And this is what Turkey has said. They said we must unite the world against Israel. And, this kind of stuff. Erdogan has obsession to take Jerusalem, to protect the Al-Aqsa Mosque. He himself has come up with this idea of an army, Turkish army, moving into Jerusalem. Okay, so these things are all out there. I'm just putting them together for you. Now, number two, the Prime Minister of Israel has declared, he declared it last year, he declared it again this year, there is no Palestinian state, there will never be a Palestinian state. End of story. And the Knesset members approved a bill annexing Gaza, Judea, and Samaria to extend sovereignty over all of these areas. Now, here's the stuff, okay? News headlines on that. You know that Trump wants to have Abraham Accords. Abraham Accords require Saudi Arabia. They're doing all this to bypass the Palestinians, and yet, in all of this, these actors have said, we will not join the Abraham Accords unless there's a clear path to a two-state solution. Okay? That means there has to be a Palestinian state someday. If you say there'll never be a Palestinian state, who's going to join the Abraham Accord? Okay? So this is one of the issues that's there. Then you have, as I said, the Knesset approves a bill. It hasn't been enacted, but this is, the Knesset has said by a majority, we want to apply sovereignty to the West Bank, okay? To control what we call the West Bank. It's Judea and Samaria, biblically, historically. And they call all the people who are there settlers and even terrorists. But they're not. They're Israelis who are occupying biblical land. So this will make all of that legal and take care of the idea of, yeah, they'll be called occupation. They always call them occupiers, but it's their land. It always has been. So I'm just showing you what's happening. Now, third, I said the Abraham Accords failed, but Iran's agreement to not support terrorism, if this happens, may give Israel temporary rest or security from proxy attacks. More of, I added into what Ezekiel said about being at rest or whatever. So these are all of the network of pro-Iranian militant groups. If you take out Iran, or Iran says not to do it, then of course you take out all of them. So Israel, surrounded by these things, will be at peace. Now, finally down here, Israel enjoys secure boundaries, increases its technology interproduction. That's where Israel is. It's the Silicon Wadi of the global tech and startup innovation, not to be underestimated. I mean, you use Waze or have a cell phone or a lot of medical devices. All this stuff came out of Israel. I mean, that's why you have it. It's amazing what's there. And then Jerusalem removes restrictions for Orthodox Jews to worship on the Temple Mount. You say, oh, when did that happen? Well, let's see here.
And tell me about your two flags.
So this is a flag of the third temple, which we want to build hopefully here at the Temple Mount.
Many people are holding the same flag. The Third Temple movement wants to demolish Al-Aqsa, the third holiest place for Muslims, and build a Jewish temple on the site.
What you'll see a lot is the Beit Shishim flag, the third temple flag. A lot of the people that come on days like this, they believe that there will be a third temple, and so actually they're already preparing for it in different ways. Where they live in different settlements in Israel, you will actually have signs towards Beit HaMikdash, towards the third temple.
Okay, that's one thing. Okay, and all this happened just a month or so ago. In June 7th, 1967, Mahdi Gura, who was the general standing there and took the Temple Mount, took East Jerusalem, said the Temple Mount is in our hands. And just May 14th, you had the Benny Gavir, who was the head of the Minister of Security. He said the Temple Mount is in our hands and declared ownership of the Temple Mount. This is a government official. He's the guy over all this stuff. So
What did the Muslims do?
well,
On Jerusalem Day, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejected the idea of a Palestinian state, declaring that Jerusalem will remain forever under Israeli control. He proclaimed the Temple Mount is in our hand, a statement that immediately sparked assumption about the Third Temple. Standing nearby, National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir spoke openly about rebuilding the Third Temple right in front of Netanyahu. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich added his own bold word, "I will give the money, you will build the temple." Together, these declarations intensified speculation
he's finance
that
minister.
Israel leadership is edging closer to embracing temple construction.
All right, so these are things happening. We have Temple Mount sovereignty. Okay, if Israel has control of the site, what can they do there? You've seen, some of you have been here before, Jewish prayer was already restored on the Temple Mount. So Jews go up there every single day and they stretch out and they pray like that at the site. That is completely, was unheard of, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
You went there, it was enforced, you couldn't get up there, you couldn't do that. You couldn't wear a t-shirt with a picture of a temple, you couldn't bring a Bible, you couldn't bring nothing. And now we're in a very different situation like this, where you even have Jewish families on the Temple Mount going up like a Shabbat. Let's go on up. Right? That's a sense of normalcy.
Yeah, what happened to make that change? Because I was not aware of this. I thought that praying.
Itamar Ben-Gvir said they could go up, and they went up. And they went up in mass. They had 60,000 Jews go up last year. Okay, that
Why are the
overwhelms
Palestinians
things.
not
Okay?
revolting?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, but I mean, the Israeli government is cooperative. They, for like certain events, like Ramadan or whatever, they give it entirely to the Muslims. They close it to the Jews. They don't want confrontation. But I'm saying right now, this is happening, and the Muslims can't really do much about it. And then you got the things, the high priest has been chosen by the Sanhedrin.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In other words, here's what they said: the altar is prepared, the priests are trained, the vessels are made, everything awaits only the physical temple. Believers worldwide are being urged to pay close attention. This is not distant future speculation. These developments are happening now in Jerusalem. And you had just in May, you had 13 people arrested trying to bring a sacrifice. This is a bread offering to the thing. Then you had 21 arrested for trying to bring a baby goat on to sacrifice it. This is not just a matter of, oh, let them do it, no problem. Once you do that, you set a precedent. You said it's happened, okay? Sacrifice has returned to the site. That's why the police are stopping it, okay? We're not at the time yet, but this is the kind of thing that's happening. And as you know, the temple vessels are ready for rebuilding, and on and on. Those are the things that have been there in place. Another thing is a survey that was done. A survey of religious beliefs among Israelis. Used to be, you'd say, you know, Israel's got it's basically atheist over there. They came back from the Holocaust, hating God, and there's not really a secular state. According to this comprehensive survey by the Israel Democracy Institute's Gutman Center for Surveys, 80% believe in God. You know, that's a big change. I tell you what kind of God or what God, but they believe in God. 44% believe Jewish law, which is called halakha, should replace democracy. It's just like in Islam, you've got your own government governed by your holy book. Here, the Bible laid out laws, and the Jews refined that through the Mishnah and the Talmud to explain all these details about what happens if you're doing this and doing that. So they have this whole code of law. So halakha comes from the word halak, to walk, and it means the way of life, the way you do things. So they say we don't want secular democracy. We want to have biblical law back here, okay, which includes the laws of the temple. So these are the things. So how close could we be? Well, the stage is set. This is from an Israeli publication. Israel is now experiencing the most critical stage in the process of redemption since its founding in 1948. This will lead to the end-time climax of the redemption process, the building of the temple of God on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, and the coming of Mashiach, that's Messiah, ben David, the end-time messenger of God. So this is a fervent belief that's out there, and current events are propelling that. That's what I was sharing with you, okay? From our biblical perspective, this is what Ezekiel says as he concludes the Gog and Magog thing. God says, "In my holy name I shall make known in the midst of my people Israel." They may not really have seen a demonstration of my power in quite some time, but I shall not let my holy name be profaned anymore. And the nations will know that I am the Lord, the Holy One in Israel. Behold, it is coming, it shall be done, declares the Lord God. That is the day of which I have spoken. So we believe this is a yet future day. It's coming. And God has promised it because he has a purpose, and with a purpose comes a promise. Okay? So, I actually stopped early today. Can you believe that? Give you one more picture here. Remember Pete Hickseth? He was on the Temple Mount with the leader of the Temple Mount Institute. Thumbs up. Don't know what that means, but it's where that is.
Red peppers from Texas, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. So, but I'm just saying, you know, he's probably changed his position on that now. He's just a tourist then, working with Fox News. But, all right. Any discussion? Anybody have any questions about all that you saw? with me?
So you saw, or we saw on one of your pictorials that the temple would be rebuilt like right after the rapture?
Well, what I'm saying is, it won't, according to what I was telling you, I think the catalyst for bringing that to pass is the battle of Gog and Magog. So this is future invasion of Israel, and God's intervention to put Israel in a place where, first off, the Muslim obstacle is out of the way. Second, God has done a miraculous thing, and people's hearts are inclined to honor and worship Him, and the best place to do that is a temple. But they still are waiting for some kind of what could happen next. This is what happened in '67. They could have built the temple then when they occupied the site. They were scared of what the reaction to the nations were going to be, because they said, international community didn't even accept that Israel had done that. So who's going to step in and help them? Well, this future leader, will come in. He'll say, let me make an agreement. Daniel talks about it. And from that agreement will come permission, security and protection during the first part of the tribulation to allow them to rebuild the temple. So the temple, it only takes a month or so. They got all the stuff there, everything's ready, and it'll continue to be ready. So it's a national concern. Boy, that stuff will happen quick, believe me. But at the midpoint of the tribulation, this man who made the covenant with them will break the covenant, and Revelation says that he will usurp. Well, Second Thessalonians says he'll usurp the place of God in the temple, making himself out to be God. And it says that the part of the temple which is on the outside, says it's been given to the nations. They'll trample it underfoot for the end of the till the end of the tribulation. And that's what, and that's when you read when Luke 21:24 says, Jerusalem will be trampled down by the nations until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. So when does that take place? When Jerusalem's not trampled? It's trampled right now. They can't get to the holy site. They can't do their thing. And it will continue to happen during the tribulation. That won't end until the second coming of Christ. Messiah. That's when that will end. So when you're looking at Luke 21, like Matthew 24, and Mark 13, that's the Olivet Discourse, is the whole picture of when Jesus sat on the Mount of Olives. The disciples came and said, "You just said the temple was going to be destroyed. That's the end of the world. When's this going to happen? When these things going to take place, it will be the sign of your coming, the end of the age." And he begins to unfold these things.
Will the ark be in the new temple?
I think so. Because the belief is that it was never lost, stolen, or destroyed. There's nothing in
So
history.
could that be an archaeological find?
Yes.
Here in the future?
So the belief is it's there, you just have to have access to it. It's under the destruction of a couple of temples. There's probably some tunnels that could get to it, but nobody has been able to. People have tried. But when you have complete control and access of the site, you can do everything. And they'll bring that up because their belief is the temple was built in the first place to house the Ark of the Covenant. Just like the tabernacle existed for that purpose. The Ark was first and you put it inside. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming. All I'm trying to say in this class is that when we look at Bible prophecy, it's not just some cold words on a page. This is a reality, and we can see God's hand in history moving to bring it about. And we should look for that. We shouldn't be, I've had people tell me, well, I don't listen to any news anymore. It's all bad news. I don't listen to news. And I said, you're cutting yourself off from what God is doing in your world. You need to be aware. You need to follow Him. And there's negative stuff, but there's positive. It all leads to His final purpose.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna speak to too. I see in this a couple different things. One, God's stated purpose in using Israel, And even in this situation, that he would be glorified through them, there is chosen people.
Yes.
And that what a powerful witness with what he's going to do there. And we don't know how it's going to look. We know that in the past, God has confused enemy camps where they've destroyed one another.
Yeah.
God could very easily do that. I'm just throwing, you could throw out speculation. Russia could send nuclear weapon, I mean, they could attack
Well,
these other
Ezekiel
countries
tells
that
you
are.
exactly what's going to happen. It's going to be an earthquake. He's going to send other things that will basically destroy stuff. And it'll be 7 years. It tells us they're burying the people who were killed in this as well as their weapons.
Yeah, how that's going to happen, but then also so there's the fulfillment of his word concerning Jerusalem and the Israelites and protecting them, and the purpose of that too, just God. What I look at that too is the pride of man that keeps him from humbling himself and crying out to God. And you see that all the way through the book of Revelation. What would it take? What will it take to break the pride of the Muslims that hate Israel so much? What would it take for them to cry out and say, "Yeah, your God is God," and repent there?
There's
But
so
also
much
even our
deception
own
and
nation.
lies. If they don't know, you have to know the truth to accept the truth and then to believe the truth. So it depends on, they don't know. Okay, so that's part of our job to help the truth be known. I mean, right now we live in a world where we got a lot of young people saying that the Jews aren't the Jews, and that Israel is not Israel, and that modern Israel is not ancient Israel, and all these kind of stuff, which is completely nonsensical.
Right, I agree with that.
But
doesn't change the truth, though.
Well, it doesn't. But I mean, I'm talking about even Christian kids are that confused. And we say Israel is at the center of God's purposes. You want to see what God's doing, then you look at Israel, because all the promises of the future relate to it, not to us, to that.
Well, yeah, I will just say, push back just a little bit on the Muslims that I'm just saying, they do know their history and they do know the Jewish history, and even using the Old Testament as part of, because of their own manuscripts. So all I would say there is, you can say, well, they don't know the truth. I think there's been some things that, but they believe their truth beats out this one when it comes and turns around and actually defeats them.
You're more generous than they are. I've ridden in countless taxi cabs driven by Muslims who started conversations. You know more about Islam than I do. You're born into it. Your obligation is to do the 5 pillars. You don't have to even believe it. You just have to do it. They have and they don't try to go beyond that.
The way I see it is God's end game plan is whoever will turn to him and be saved, cry out to him. And even in the midst of that, if your God is all of a sudden that you're trusting in, God shows his hand against that. That's how people who don't even know about it, like Rahab the prostitute, she's like, everybody in our country is afraid of your God, and she turns and helps the Israelites. That's all I'm saying, Randy, is God's power and what he's doing in the individuals, even in the midst of all of these things. I do believe that's God's end thing, is for him to be glorified, for those that turn to his son in faith and turn away from whether it's Muslim or whether it's our own country and
Absolutely, he does all those
pride.
things. He does all those things to humble the pride of man and have people know that he is God. And that's where our prayers ought to be. We can't do anything. None of this can we do. All we can do is pray and understand and inform people of what is coming. And this scenario may change. I just gave you the way it is today. The things that are happening. It's go this way, go that way. But ultimately, we know what the prophecy is.
bless us with just to come learn more about you and how we apply you to our lives. Just help us to live the way you want us to. And just thank you for the class. We just lift up all the prayer